The AFL Draft Combine is a mainstay in the footy calendar. Held in October, it's the primary occasion for clubs to get to know the players and test out their athletic prowess before making the investment to draft them. The Combine certainly does have some mystery around it though. And in this video, we'll talk through the process of how players get to the Combine, what recruiters are looking for, and how much weight is placed on the event. So let's kick things off with the selection process. How do you get into that exclusive club? To be selected for the National Combine, under 18 footballers in their top age year must be nominated by more than 3 AFL clubs. The nominations come in the lead up to the event. Every club's recruiting team submits a list of around 50 names, and if a player's name keeps popping up, they get an invite. If your name pops up a bit, but not regularly enough, you'll get an invite to a state combine, a smaller version of the event. An invite to the National Combine is a good indication that multiple clubs are interested in you. Attending this year's Combine are 65 players. Amongst the skills tested over the weekend, a vertical jump, 20-metre sprint, an agility test, the yo-yo, and a 2-kilometre time trial. But another element of the Combine are the interviews conducted between player and recruiter, which we'll get into a little bit later in this video. But let's kick things off with the testing. In 2013, Patrick Cripps lined up for the beep test at the National Combine. The talented Western Australian was known as a strong, big-bodied, contested inside mid. He'd grown a lot in a short amount of time, so his 190cm stature belied his ground skills, which were on par with much smaller players. Recruiters, however, were concerned about his lack of spread and his general lack of running capacity to cover the ground. Coming into the Combine, Cripps knew the beep test could make or break his draft position. He would run an underwhelming 11 beep tests. He slid to pick 13, and Carlton snapped him up after several clubs overlooked the future 2-time Brownlow medalist. Head recruiter at Collingwood, Matt Rendell, would later say the decision not to take Cripps was actually a pretty simple one. He couldn't run. But stories like the Cripps one are actually in the minority, and the data suggests the danger of reading too deeply into the Combine results. In a 2020 study by the Victoria University looking at draft combines between 1999 and 2016 and using the number of AFL games played and player rating points, no positive relationships were found between high athletic test scores and career outcomes. And clubs even outright say that they're more interested in things like competitiveness and football skills rather than combine numbers. So if that's the case and test scores aren't really that important, what are recruiters actually looking for at the Combine? So let's go back to the same Combine that Cripps was at in 2013, and clubs were intrigued by South Australian tall forward product Mitch Harvey, who had a bag of skill and was kicking goals for fun at under 18 level. But similar to Cripps, recruiters did harbour doubts about Harvey's endurance. They hoped that the 3-kilometre time trial at the time would dispel their concerns. But when Harvey dished up the worst time trial of the entire event, recruiters were rejoicing the bullet that they had just dodged. There was a twist, however. Harvey was diagnosed the following day with glandular fever, and recruiters soon flipped from disappointment to impressed. Rather than seeing Harvey's poor time trial as a negative, recruiters now saw resilience and grit to go ahead even under such sufferance. And this leans into a paper titled Exploring Talent ID in Australian Rules Football, again by the Victoria University, a qualitative research conducted through interviews where one recruiter said it best. I don't look at what they do, I look at how they do it. Do they just coast the 2K time trial and then sprint a little bit at the end? Or do they actually try to push for their PB? Harvey's grit was rewarded with a 3rd-round selection and goes to the crux of the Combine. Process over result. Of course, big athletic performances are eye-catching, but they don't really rise your draft stocks or lengthen your career, as the studies tell us. Looking at the raw numbers can be extremely misleading when trying to understand the Combine. But there is one last part of the draft combine that is important to recruiters, and that is the interviews. 2022 draftee Bailey Humphrey says one club asked him what traits he needed in a girlfriend. It was a bit of a curveball, he said. Elijah Sardis was later asked, what car do you describe yourself as? A Ferrari, Sardis said with a smile. Geelong Falcons co-captain Jai Clark was asked if there was a player in his draft class that he would not draft. And another player was asked by Brisbane whose place in the team he would take if they drafted him. Strange questions, you might think, maybe a little bit unnecessary even. But clubs use this part of the combine to judge a player's emotional maturity, intelligence, to see if they'd be a good fit for the club and its culture. While answers to these questions aren't necessarily right or wrong, they can give information about confidence, creativity, or even socialisation. And again, clubs are unlikely to make any hasty decisions off these answers, but they'll take the data and look for any little details that they can. So to summarise, is the draft combine actually important? It definitely is, but maybe not in the way that you think it is. It's rare that the athletic testing at the combine will change the outcome of the draft, and especially at the top end. It is, however, a way for the clubs to watch how the players socialise and interact and answer questions and confirm what they probably already know. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you like the content, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more draft-related content.